What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video. It is officially Selection Sunday for the 2025 March Madness. It is 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. Just finished watching Grand Canyon versus Utah Valley, where Grand Canyon punched their ticket to the big dance, and we only got a few more tickets left. The A10 possible bid still with George Mason, and we got the American possible bid still with UAB, and we still got the Ivy League between Cornell and Yale. But this is going to be my final bracketology because the official bracket does release this evening, Sunday at 6 p.m. We will be live streaming during the reveal, watching the bracket get revealed, and making some of our first brackets there in that stream. So come hang out tonight when it gets revealed here on YouTube. And yeah, guys, subscribe if you guys are new. Hit that like button if you guys enjoy. Let's get right into our final bracketology. Guys, you guys know how we do it by now. We give you our first two regions here. If you guys want to just skim through and skip to the next two regions, it'll be about halfway or a little past halfway through this video. But first, we're going to break down these first two regions. I will go over my first teams out first because that is really, a lot of fans of the teams in the bubble want to know which bracketologies have them in, which bracketologies, have them out. My first teams out are North Carolina. I did not put them in. It sucks that really a lane violation on a free throw shot may have cost them a chance to go to the tournament. I have seen some bracketologies where they do have North Carolina in, so all hope is not lost. The committee may think differently than me. This is just my personal opinion. And there are also some bid still opportunities in George Mason because I think VCU isn't at large, but that could be iffy, and also UAB because Memphis is for sure in. If UAB wins, that could be another bid steal that could knock another team out on the bubble. So North Carolina, got to be big Memphis fans, got to be big VCU fans tomorrow. But North Carolina is my first team out. Xavier, San Diego State, other teams that some people do have in. I have seen some bracketologies that still have Xavier in, still have San Diego State in the last few days. Both of these teams lost in the first round, or the first game that they've played in their conference tournaments, and they still are in some bracketology. So all hope is not lost. Like I said, the committee may think differently than me, but this is just my personal opinion. And we still have George Mason and UAB I did decide to put on here because they are close, but also because they could get in due to a bid steal. But UC Irvine did just lose to UC San Diego. I hope that we do get a two-bid Big West conference in this year's March Madness, but I don't think it's going to happen. We didn't get a two-bid Missouri Valley Conference last year whenever it was Drake and Indiana State, and that Indiana State team had better metrics than UC Irvine this year, so I doubt we're going to get to see UC Irvine, but UC San Diego did punch their ticket officially today, so there is no leaving them out. That is awesome to see. And then Ohio State, and I already mentioned UAB. Those are my last teams in, or my first teams out. I should say my first team's out. They did not get in for my opinion. But let's go over some of the teams that I do have in. My last teams in are going to be in the next two regions. We'll get to them in a second. They are on the 12 line because I did move UC San Diego and also VCU, assuming they win against George Mason. I think that they deserve an 11 seed if they do. But our East region, I do have a new top overall seed. Auburn has not been good in the month of March. They are 2-3 in the month of March. It is the worst they have been playing all season long. And for one of the best, most talented teams in the country, it's tough to see them go into the tournament so cold because they are still going to be a 1 seed. As you can see in my South region, they're just not my top overall 1 seed. Duke gets that, won the ACC championship in the tournament, and in the semis, they lost, or in the semis and the championship game, they did not have Cooper Flag. In the second half of the quarters, they did not have Cooper Flag. So very impressive. They were still able to get it done, especially that second half against Louisville. They really started to turn up and pull away. Duke, in my opinion, at this point, deserves the top overall seed over Auburn the way that they have been playing lately. Mount St. Mary's punched their ticket. St. Francis punched their ticket. They are in here at the 16 line, but they will be playing in Dayton. 8 seed, we do have UConn. 9 seed, Georgia. Would be a fantastic 8-9 matchup. I feel like both of those teams are going to be around the 8-9 line. I think it's possible for UConn to get a 7, but over any of my 7s, I couldn't give it to them, to be honest. If we look over to the South region, UCLA is my top 8 seed. So if anyone should be pushed to a 7 from the 8 line, it's probably UCLA, if we're being honest. So I feel pretty good about UConn, Georgia both being on the 8-9 line right now. Michigan played really well the last couple games. They were heading into that Big Ten tourney really cold, but now they are in the Big Ten championship game, which will be played today here on Sunday against Wisconsin. So I think that they move their way back up to the 5 line, and if they can beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship, Michigan could get back to the 4 line, which is kind of crazy because I'm really not that high on Michigan. I definitely think there is some upset potential if they do get matched up with a team that I do have them matched up against in Liberty, who punched their ticket today. I'm very high on this Liberty team. I definitely see some upset potential there, but Michigan, a very rangy team. I could see them going as far as like the Elite 8, but I could also see them losing in the first round to a team like Liberty. Texas A&M is down to the 4 line for me. They did lose early in the SEC, the first game that they played against Texas. That kind of bumped them down to a 4 for me. It was between them and Kentucky for the last 3 seed. I decided to give it to Kentucky over Texas A&M. There is definitely a debate there, so if you think differently, I would not blame you whatsoever, but I do have A&M at the 4 and Kentucky at the 3. And I have them against Yale, who has yet to punch their ticket. But if they do, I think they'll be a 13-ish. But if it's Cornell's probably looking at more of a 14 or 15 seed, to be honest there. So 6 seed, we have Ole Miss versus 11 seed West Virginia. West Virginia losing to Colorado. They're after getting the first round bye and then losing in the second round of the Big 12 tourney to Colorado. That hurt them. That pushed West Virginia down from a 9 to an 11. But they still get in. They still get the bye. They are not one of the last teams in, but they are getting close to it. It wouldn't surprise me if they sent West Virginia to Dayton, but I do have them here at the 11 line, first round against Ole Miss. Wisconsin here at the 3 line, they have been playing outstanding. Made it to the championship game there in the Big Ten. Beat Michigan State. That was a huge win. That moved Wisconsin up to the 3 seed for me, and they will be going up against UNC Wilmington in the first round. Memphis as our 7 seed. I feel like Memphis, they've been playing good. They're in the American Championship against UAB today. I keep saying tomorrow because it is actually Sunday at 2 a.m. right now. But Memphis, 7 seed. I don't think they've done anything. If they do lose to UAB, I could see them going down to an 8. If they win, it is possible they can get a 6, but I think a 7 is pretty fair there for Memphis right now. And that would be one of my favorite first-round matchups this year if it were to happen. Memphis versus Drake, 7-10 matchup. Whoever wins that would give Tennessee... I'm not going to sleep on Norfolk State because I think Norfolk State is a really strong 15 seed. But assuming Tennessee wins that, Memphis and Drake, both of them would give Tennessee a big run for their money, in my opinion. That would be an amazing first-round matchup either way, though. And then Tennessee gets the 2 seed. They're in the SEC Championship. They just knocked off Auburn. I think they solidified themselves as a 2 seed. And if they can knock off Florida, I don't think that they would get a 1 seed. But they would definitely still be a 2, obviously. So Tennessee here at the 2. South region, we have Auburn as our top seed in this region, going up against either SIUE or American. 2 of the worser teams in the tournament this year. I mean, American plays in the worst conference in the Patriot League this year. And SIUE, this is their first ever March Madness tournament, so we'll see if they can knock off American. That would be pretty cool. UCLA, as I mentioned earlier, they are my top 8 seed, and they have a very good defense. They've been kind of inconsistent this year, but they actually have a pretty decent quad 1 and quad 2 record. So UCLA, I definitely see an argument for them to be a 7 seed. I wouldn't be mad if you guys say they deserve a 7 over some of these teams, but for me it was between UCLA and Illinois. They have very similar resumes. I couldn't fit them both on the 7 line, so I decided to push UCLA down to the 8 line. But you could really swap. I mean, they're in the same region. You could swap UCLA and Illinois very easily if you thought that that was the way it should be. 9 seed, we do have Baylor. Baylor, I feel like they're more of a 10, 11 seed, to be honest. But really, the bubble is pretty weak this year, in my opinion. And there was really, I think some of these 9, 10 seeds that are Power 5 teams are kind of weak. So I think Baylor is one of those teams. You know, they had a lot of potential, a lot of talent on this team, but it seems like they haven't been able to put it all together, and I don't see much potential for this Baylor team this year. I could see them winning a game, you know, again, especially against UCLA. I could see that. But I definitely don't see them upsetting Auburn in the second round. But if they get some better matchups, it's possible they could get Sweet 16. I don't see any further than that. I don't see much consistency for Baylor this year. But 5 seed, we got Louisville. Louisville beat Clemson in the semifinals of the ACC. They were winning at points against Duke in the championship. Was unable to get that done, but I still kept Louisville here at the 5 seed. I feel like they definitely deserve it. They would be going up against 12-seeded McNeese, very strong team. That would be a very fun, interesting 5-12 matchup in my opinion. 4 seed, we do have Maryland. I think the Terps, I did have them on the 3 line in my last bracketology. I was maybe being a little bit too generous for them, but I do think they will be around that 4-5 range come this evening on Selection Sunday. They'll go up against 13-seeded Lipscomb. 6 seed, we got Oregon. Oregon, I definitely could see arguments for them to be a 5 seed. They got some big wins against teams like Alabama this year. They've been hot recently, and you know they ended the year really well. So I definitely could see Oregon getting the 5. I see a lot of people with Louisville lower, you know, as like a 6, but to me, I think Louisville deserves a 5 over Oregon. That's just my personal opinion, though. We'll see what the committee thinks. Vanderbilt as an 11 seed, I definitely think Vanderbilt is similar to West Virginia. Both lost early in their conference tournaments. They were looking at like 8 or 9 seeds, and now they got pushed down to the 11 line. Very similar, in my opinion. They both are there at the 11 as some of the last 4 teams to get buys. 3 seed in this region, we do have Iowa State still staying a 3 seed, even though they lost to BYU again. BYU had a historic shooting game in that game. I still have a lot of hope for Iowa State to make a deep run this year. I still got them as a 3 seed. To me, there's no one at this point that has done enough to deserve it over them. I think that they deserve a 3. If you look at their complete body of work, their complete resume on the season, they definitely deserve a 3. They'll be going up against, out of the Sun Belt, the Troy Trojans. 7 seed, we got Illinois here at the 7. Like I said, you could really swap them and UCLA at the 7-8 line. They both have very similar resumes in the same conference. So there's definitely a debate to be made, but I gave it to Illinois slightly. Definitely a debate there, though. Colorado State, I actually have them as a 10 seed. You know, they won the Mountain West. They punched their ticket, so they will be in the bracket. Will they be a 10? Will they be an 11? Will they be a 12? I think a 12 would be ridiculous for Colorado State, to be honest. I think they have to be at least an 11. I gave them a 10. I mean, that was not an easy path that they had in the Mountain West tournament there at all. They beat Boise State in the championship. They beat them bad. Looked really good. I got Colorado State in as a 10 seed. And then St. John's as our 2 seed. Won the Big East tournament. Won the Big East regular season. They've been dominating. Got one of the best defenses in the country. They definitely deserve a 2. I still don't understand why some people still have them as a 3. They have to be a 2. St. John's has to be a 2. And they'll be going up against, out of the Horizon League, Robert Morris, which is probably somebody's grandpa. As we got our next 2 regions 3 and 4, Midwest and West, and we'll talk about my last 4 teams in, which are on the 12 lines of both of these regions, and that is Arkansas, Indiana, Boise State, and Texas. I gave it, and Boise State and Arkansas and Indiana are in, I think, in my opinion. I think, and even if some of the bid steals happen, they can still stay in. Boise State State and Texas are my last two in, and there's definitely debate there. Do you guys think North Carolina, Xavier, San Diego State have a case over Boise State and Texas? I will give you guys my reasoning for putting Boise State and Texas in, because this is the argument for North Carolina and San Diego State especially, not really so much Xavier, but I think the argument for North Carolina and San Diego State is, if you look at the complete body of work throughout the complete season, look at their resumes, they probably have the better resumes than Boise State and Texas. But for Boise State and Texas, they wanted it more, in my opinion, when it mattered most in the conference tournaments. They were able to get wins to show that they deserve to be in. Boise State got big time wins against San Diego State in their first game of the Mountain West, against New Mexico in the second game of the Mountain West, and then in the championship they did lose to Colorado State, but they made a run to the Mountain West championship game, and they were hot at the end of the regular season as well. I feel like Boise State, it would be a disservice to not put them as one of the last teams in, and at least give them a chance in Dayton to win the 12 seed. And then Texas did the same thing. They won 2 games in the SEC tourney, including a game against Texas A&M, which was a massive win for them. I would love to see Trey Johnson in the tournament. I would love to see North Carolina in the tournament too. San Diego State. I'd like to see all these teams in the tourney, but there has to be a cutoff somewhere, and really the bubble isn't that strong anyway. But there has to be a cutoff somewhere, and I gave it to Boise State and Texas. Maybe a little bit of recency bias right there. I will admit it, but I feel like when it mattered, those teams fought. And I understand North Carolina was fighting too. That's why they were my first team out. They fought. They got that win against Wake Forest, made it to the semis against Duke, and if it wasn't for a lane violation, that game was most likely going to go to overtime. And they had a chance to knock off Duke, which would have for sure put them in the tourney. Like I said, that's just my opinion. North Carolina could very well get in. They have a real shot still. It is very close, in my opinion. But let's go over these last 2 regions. So we got Houston here at the 1 seed, won the Big 12 tourney, won the Big 12 regular season, been dominating, only 1 loss in the Big 12 all season. Houston has to be a 1 seed. They were going up against Bryant, pretty strong 16, honestly, but still a 16 seed. 8 seed, we got Creighton. 9 seed, Mississippi State. Creighton, I really wanted to say that they played their way up to a 7 seed, throughout the Big East tourney. They made it all the way to the championship game. They were fighting with St. John's, was unable to get it done. I wanted to push them up to a 7 line, but I couldn't do it. There was none of my 7s could I look at and say Creighton deserves it over you. So I couldn't do it. Mississippi State did move down to a 9 seed for me. I just feel like they have been pretty inconsistent, especially lately, the last few weeks, leading into the SEC tournament. I got them down at a 9. I feel like the 8-9 line is I feel pretty comfortable about Mississippi State being an 8 or a 9. Clemson as a 5 seed, very similar to Louisville. Louisville did beat them. I did have Clemson as a 4 seed. I moved them down to a 5, but still, I feel like they'll probably be. I feel like Clemson's going to be a 5. That's just me though. And then we talked about Arkansas, Indiana, 2 of my last 4 teams in, but I definitely think Arkansas and Indiana are in over Boise State and Texas 100%. 4 seed, we do have Arizona. Arizona made it all the way to the Big 12 championship game, knocking off teams like Kansas and Texas Tech. So a couple really good wins there, got them boosted up to a 4 seed. I could see Arizona as a 5. I think they're going to be a 4 or a 5. Akron, they're going up against Akron, a very good team out of the MAC conference that really dominated that league this year. Gonzaga as a 6 seed. I moved Gonzaga up, and if you look across there to the West region, St. Mary's is also a 6 seed. I got them both on the 6 line. That would be huge for Gonzaga to get there to a 6 or a 7 rather than an 8 or a 9. That would be massive, and I think they've done enough to at least get a 7. And they'll go up against Oklahoma, an 11 seed out of the SEC that I feel like should be comfortably in right now. Texas Tech is our 3 seed in this region. I feel like they, even losing in the semis to Arizona, I still think that they are going to get a 3 seed. If you look at their whole season, they definitely deserve it. Being the second best team in the Big 12 pretty much. Yeah, they definitely deserve it, and they'll go up against Wofford, a very sneaky team out of a good SoCon conference. There was a very entertaining SoCon tournament this year. Look out for Wofford. Look out for him. Marquette, 7 seed. Marquette down to a 7 seed. I still think they are a very scary 7. They had a very hot start to the season, and I want to say that they can get back to that, but they just haven't been that consistent recently. They're down here at a 7, but there is potential there. There is potential. 10 seed Utah State. Not too high on Utah State. I definitely think that they could drop down to an 11 seed. To be honest, I dropped them out of the 8-9 line down to a 10 line this week. I just feel like, they haven't been as good recently. They got to drop down a little bit. Alabama here at the 2 line, no doubt about it. Alabama got to be the top 2 seed. Unless Tennessee beats Florida, then Tennessee might be the top 2 seed. But either way, Alabama is going to be a 2, and they'll go up against Omaha in the first round. West region and our last region, Florida gets our last number 1 seed. Another good win against Alabama today to advance to the SEC championship against Tennessee. That is going to be a fantastic one, and to see who wins the SEC tourney. And Florida, I think, solidified themselves as the last 1 seed. I think our 1 seeds are set. Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida. In my opinion, looks like that is going to be the case. And yes, I think it is. And if they beat Tennessee, could they get, the Midwest region and push Houston down? It's possible, but I think that those are going to be your 4 ones. They'll be going up against Alabama State, who punched their ticket today. Congratulations to Alabama State. Now we have 4 Alabama teams in the tournament. Alabama, Auburn, Troy, and Alabama State. So shout out to the state of Alabama getting 4 teams in. Kansas, 8 seed. I see some people still have them as a 7. It wouldn't be surprising to me if they get a 7. I think they're going to be anywhere from a 7 to a 9. New Mexico, I still have them at the 9 line. I definitely could see them getting pushed down to a 10. I think they're going to be a 9 or a 10. BYU as a 5 seed. I'm pretty high on BYU. Some of my 5s are kind of interesting. I have like Louisville, BYU up as 5s. Some people would have these teams as 6s. I definitely could see the committee going that direction. I think that they deserve 5s over some of these other teams. But like I said, the committee definitely could see BYU, Louisville, Clemson, some of these teams as 6s. I think that they're 5s though. 12 seeds, we got Boise State, Texas, talked about them. Could definitely argue North Carolina and Xavier over them, or even San Diego State possibly. I decided to go with Boise State and Texas as my last 2 teams in. Purdue as a 4 seed. Purdue, I guess they've done enough to earn a 4 seed. In my opinion, they're not a strong 4. I don't think I think they rely a lot on Braden Smith and TKR, and they don't have that good of a defense. And going up against a high-powered offense like High Point, I would definitely be picking High Point in some of my brackets because I'm going to make a lot. But as far as my main bracket, I'd have to think about it. But yeah, I don't think Purdue's a strong 4, but I think they also deserve it at the same time. They deserve a 4. I think Purdue's going to be a 4 or a 5. Come this evening here when they reveal the bracket. 6 seed, we do have St. Mary's. As I mentioned, Gonzaga and St. Mary's, I got them both at the 6 line. I could see either of those teams being 6 or 7s. I don't see, maybe they push one of them down to the 8-9 line, possibly. I think they're both going to be 6-7s. VCU at the 11 line. They played George Mason today. I think either way, VCU should get in. Even if George Mason gets the bid still, I think VCU should get in at large. But it is possible that if George Mason wins, VCU is out. So in that case scenario, somebody else would move up to the 11, and George Mason would get a 12. Kentucky at the 3 line, as I mentioned at the beginning, it was between them and Texas A&M. I decided to give it to Kentucky, with Texas A&M being my top 4 seed. So we got Kentucky at the 3 line. That is going to be interesting to see how the committee goes. If I had to predict, I would say the committee would put Kentucky at the 3 line. That is just kind of the way the committee goes. They're going to give, Kentucky's a bigger brand, especially basketball, than Texas A&M. So they're probably going to give it to Kentucky. But in my opinion, I think they deserve it too. So I got Kentucky at the 3 line, and then Grand Canyon at the 14. They were the final ticket punched on Saturday here tonight, so they are in here at a 14 seed. I could definitely see them moving up to a 13, but there's a lot of strong mid-majors in this tournament, so I'm very excited. We got Grand Canyon down at a 14. Missouri at the 7 line. Missouri has been not having the best last few weeks, and they've moved down. They were up as like a 3 or a 4 for me for a little bit, and they've been slowly falling down to like a 5, then a 6, and now a 7. So yeah, let's stay at a 7 here for Missouri. I still think they're not in a bad spot if they can get the right matchup. I don't hate the matchup from Missouri against Michigan State in the second round. Michigan State's more defensive. Missouri's very offensive. We'll see, what would happen in that matchup. I think it would be very interesting. But UC San Diego, Missouri would have to get past them first. That would not be easy. UC San Diego officially punching their ticket today, so I'm very excited to see them in the tournament. The first year they are ever eligible to make it, and they make it. So shout out to them making their first ever March Madness. And then our final team to talk about, we got Michigan State versus Montana. Even though Michigan State lost in the semis of the Big Ten tournament, I still think they will get a 2 seed. And then Montana punched their ticket out of the Big Sky Conference. I got them as a 15. So let me know what you guys think about my final bracketology. We will have an official bracket tonight. So let me know if you guys think that this is going to be accurate to the official bracket that releases tonight, or if you think that there are going to be a lot of changes, or do you think that some of these bid steals are going to happen at the last minute with UAB and George Mason. That would be pretty cool to see a few changes here. So let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you guys are new. We are going to be streaming during the Selection Sunday reveal tonight. We're going to have my official March Madness bracket predictions up on Monday as a video, so be on the lookout for that, guys. A ton more March Madness content coming your way here, especially this next week leading up to the first round that starts Thursday and Friday. So definitely subscribe, and yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.